Welcome to From the Trenches, success shortcuts revealed by real world innovators crushing it right now. I'm your host, Scott Hartley, and we're back with another episode packed with actionable strategies from today's most successful entrepreneurs. If you're tired of generic business advice and ready for real cutting edge tactics that are working right now, you're in the right place. And today we're diving into something that sounds completely backwards, but it might be the smartest competitive advantage that you could build right now. While everyone's obsessing over the latest AI tools and automation hacks, my guest has figured out how to win using principles that are older than the internet, known as playground principles. Yeah, you heard that right. The same stuff that you and I learned as a kid before adults taught us to be fake. Back when our reputation actually mattered, when trust was earned through action and not promised in PowerPoint decks, when showing up authentically wasn't just some LinkedIn buzzword, it was how we survived. In a world drowning in polished performances and curated conversation, these old school principles that we're going to talk about today are creating competitive advantages that can't be automated, faked, or replicated by any algorithm. And my guest has a framework called the Four Questions that turns this playground wisdom into actual business results. Because he studied everybody from Michael Jordan to Fortune 500 executives who figured out that authentic connection beats clever tactics every single time. So let me introduce you to Barry Kleiman. He's a self-described 74-year-old kid from a Philly playground who has spent more than half a century in executive search and leadership development, working hands-on with countless others in their pursuits of showing up as the most connected, truthful selves, both professionally and personally. And during 25 of those years, he also founded basketball programs in places where they had never existed, while coaching in gyms from El Cerrito in Berkeley, California to Amsterdam and many places in between. Barry, I'm so excited to have you on the call today.
Would you be my press agent, Scott?
Yeah, I'd be absolutely delighted to.
That was wow. That was wonderful. Thank you. And actually, all true. And concise. Seriously, that's a great download for what I've tried to do, and also to be completely transparent. I am being visited right now by my son and two of my grandkids and my son's wife. So they're about to walk in the door. So if y'all hear some child noise in the background, I'm not even going to apologize. I'm going to say I'm proud of it because beside being a 74-year-old kid from a Philly playground, who's now 75, by the way, I'm a grandparent. And excuse me. Oh, hang on just a second. Hold on.
All right.
I had to let them in. Sorry. Anyway, so yeah, thank you very much for that. I could start anywhere you'd like, and of course, you start anywhere you like. It's your show, and I am honored to be here and talk about this this perspective that's really very near and dear to me, and I hope I can get it across because I think it matters quite a bit.
Yeah, it really does, as I mentioned in the introduction, is the big rage nowadays is like you've got to be using AI, you've got to be on LinkedIn, you've got to be on Facebook, you've got to, do all of these things to, try to win people over. Whatever that, whether that's marketing or trying to build relationships or, even just being a leader in your own company and, relating to your employees or your contractors and everything. And, I feel like that we've lost touch with the root principles like you lay out in your book. And the book, by the way, is called The Playground Principles, and you can find it on Amazon. We'll actually put a link to it in the show notes. But, what kind of prompted you to go back and write this book and focus on the playground principles? What are these principles, and why did you kind of like latch onto those?
Well, it's a great. I'm not even sure where to start with that. What prompted me was I spent, as you said, I spent literally 50 years in the executive search and development business. I've helped more people through career transitions than I could possibly count. And 50 years is a long time, right? Um, and that was my job. And I joke all the time. This was my LinkedIn. In case anybody
An
can't see
old
this,
Rolodex.
this is a Rolodex, and this is
Yeah.
filled with cards, and you can hear them. And this was my LinkedIn,
Hmm.
right? You called people on the phone, and that's when companies had phone numbers and extensions and so forth and so on, and you figured out when a good time to catch them was. And I wrote another book called How the Truth Will Set You and Your Career Free, which is more job search focused. But most of the connections I made were at 6:30 at night, 7 o'clock at night, as opposed to 1 o'clock in the afternoon, because
Hmm.
that's when people needed help hiring, because they were sitting there working overtime.
Hmm.
And their HR department, I can say this now because I'm not in the business anymore, I won't get in trouble. They had gone home at 5, and the line manager, he or she was still there because they needed help, and you caught them on the phone and you engaged and you
Hmm.
made a connection. As
Yeah.
I think I told you before we started, I hate the word networking because it seems transactional.
Hmm.
But I love the word connecting. And so it took me a very long time. There's a Picasso quote, it takes a long time to grow young. When I decided to retire, I didn't want to not work. I need to work. I like to work. Um, I was walking around, actually a golf course one day, watching my nephews on the PGA Tour, just up in north of here in Napa. And I was thinking, okay, what do I really want to do? And I kept coming back to this word connection, 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 connection. And
Hmm.
I realized that my roots, in case you can't see behind me, that's a jersey from West Philadelphia High School. I did not go to West Philadelphia High School, but it's a kind of an iconic Philly Hall of Fame player named Gene Banks. Um, my roots are, and everything I learned about connection came in the playground,
Hmm.
because I think you prefaced it early. You had to learn. You had to learn this. You had to learn how to get along, call a foul. You know, figure out whether or not you should curse somebody out, and the repercussions of that. And so you found ways to get your point across, and hopefully, for the most part, make peace. And if you didn't make peace, you realize the consequences of your actions. And I was never this toughest guy, but you figured all this out.
Hmm.
And then I've coached a bunch
Hmm.
basketball, and I every year I got deeper into it, the more I start to realize how disconnected some of the kids were, and then the more prolific these things became, because I think you said I was at it for 25 years, phone.
Hmm.
Uh, um, the further and further they got from it, and then in corporate life, the reason my job existed was because there were so many people who were unhappy with what they're doing, but didn't know how to communicate it in an effective way, in the right way, and have a real-time conversation, a win-win conversation with their boss or their coworker. And so um, one of my favorite stories, I had a client, I'll just call him Andy, and he said, well, if he's going to dig his heels in, I'm going to dig my heels in. I said, well, great, Andy, now you have four effing heels in the ground, meaning you're nowhere.
Yeah.
So for whatever reason, Scott, on that day, this started coming back to me. I had just read one of Russell Brunson's books. I don't remember which one. Talked about, what are you passionate about? What matters to you? What do you want to proselytize about? And the truth is, I really didn't want to proselytize about anything. But then I kept coming back to this word connection, and it's everywhere. AT&T, Stay Connect. I mean, the buzzword is everywhere.
Hmm.
But for me, I had to find a way to talk about it that wasn't stock, right? That wasn't, everyday humdrum. And
Hmm.
so I don't know how it all happened, but all of a sudden I had this congruence of the playground, and we did connect, and I showed you the Rolodex. And so all of a sudden I realized that the amalgamation of my life. And then I start to think about all the ways I counseled people for all the years. And it was just this
Mm-hmm.
being able to just have a real conversation. I try not to, but I can curse like a sailor. And sometimes you realize that that's what it took. And other times you realize that's not where to go. And you just kind of read the room
Mm-hmm.
and you realize that, everybody, everybody needs to hear stuff a different way, right? And the same story. I think I told you we had a woman who I don't know if sure if was a part of the group that you and I are mutually involved in at Brian Kurtz's Titans Accelerator. Her name is Sue Rice. She wrote an amazing book called Tiny Thunders. And Sue's book is about metaphoric storytelling, which is what I have always done, but it was more validating because
Mm-hmm.
to me it was natural. That's just how you communicate it. So
Yeah.
I think in the book I talked about, beside being a 74-year-old kid from a Philly playground, I'm also a serial plagiarist. Um, I will borrow lyrics from songs and lines from movies, whatever it takes to make it anecdotal to the situation in front of us.
Yeah.
You know, that somebody, I see your point.
Yeah, because people can relate to that. They can relate to the
Exactly.
stories. They can relate to the lyrics. They can relate to all of those different things. It makes it easier, for them to, again, going back to your word, connect.
Connect. And so, you connect with who doesn't connect with Seinfeld? Who doesn't connect or whatever pop culture, right?
Hmm.
Seinfeld, Pulp Fiction, Springsteen. I mean, you name it. And I've I'm a huge Warren Buffett fan. I'm a huge um, Peter Drucker fan. And so these are also people who have mentored me.
Hmm.
Stephen Covey, I must have given Seven Habits of Highly Effective People away. I don't know how many copies because that book to me, but the book is principles,
Yeah.
right? It's seven principles, and principles are principles. And we've just lost it, and everybody wants likes and this, that, and the other thing. And to me, when I was younger, a like was a fist bump. I'm willing to physically engage you, good shot, good pass, thank you very much, whatever, opposed to how many likes did you get today? I
Hmm.
think the great Dan Kennedy said, last time I went to the store and asked for a quart of milk, I couldn't pay for it with likes.
Exactly. And
So anyway, so
unfortunately,
we
that's
move
a
on.
metric that so many people latch onto is with their marketing, with their, connections that they're making on LinkedIn and Facebook and all this stuff. It's like, how many likes can I get? How many followers can I have? But really, what's the benefit of that? What are you doing to take that to the next level, right?
You just froze. What are you doing to take something and then you froze? Sorry.
Yeah, what are you doing to take those likes and those followers to the next level? Because just having, a bunch of likes and followers isn't going to do you any good personally or professionally.
I mean, raise your hand, Scott, if you ever heard the expression in some of the worlds where we met, which is more in the marketing space, people do business with people they know, like, and trust. You ever hear
Yep.
that before?
A few thousand times, right?
I didn't make it up, but this building trust, Dr. Covey's son wrote an amazing book. It's right here called The Speed of Trust. Trust is everything. Likes are not trust,
Right.
and so anyway, I just had to go all the way back, rewind it. Just had this epiphany. And again, it took me a long time to figure out what to do next and how I wanted to position it. Um, the playground principles kind of came up as a kind of a fun name, but
Hmm.
also very, again, metaphoric to who I am and kind of where I'm from. And, I am, in fact, a 74-year-old kid from a Philly playground. I'm old and helplessly immature often. Uh, but, to a point, right? It's kind of who I am and I'm good with it. You continue to try to evolve,
Sure.
but you also don't want to be false about it. And so I think in the book, if you get a chance to read it, I try to be extremely forthcoming. And so there's only one quote by me in the whole book, which is the world changed for the worse when we lost the meritocracy of the playground, because that is what I believe. You said something very similar early on. We've just lost this thing. And so so everything else is Buffett, Drucker, Covey, you know, you name it, Peter Senge, Springsteen. And I, again, try to make the stories in the book metaphoric to the point I was trying to make. And then I
Hmm.
built in some of the principles. I mean, accountability was a huge principle in the playground.
Yeah.
And we don't see it anymore. It wasn't my fault.
Yeah.
It was his fault. And I saw it again in my career in headhunting. It ruined so many corporate cultures because people weren't willing to be responsible. They'd rather throw somebody under a bus.
Yeah.
And I tell people before you do X, Y, or Z, ask yourself, would you go do that in the playground?
Mm.
Would you go do that in the playground?
Yeah.
Or would you say, my bad, I'll fix it, I'll become accountable. So the playground principles, I live across from a park. I was just there the other day and there's a sign. Um, Playground rules, not my playground rules, but they're so basic, right? And so if we all used what we learned, you didn't have to play basketball in a sandbox. I don't really care. Watch parents guide their kids through sandboxes. Oh, let him play with the toy. Why isn't that still appropriate at some level of human decorum and accountability? And one of my adages is, my personal brand website, share the ball.
Hmm.
I coach basketball that way. I try to live my life that way. Help people, pick somebody up, make it better, fix it. And so I just kept coming back and I saw how it was the ruination of so many people's careers. They kept changing jobs rather than fix who they were. And they would do the same thing in their next job.
Yeah. And, you mentioned that accountability. That's really something I do feel that we've lost in today's society. I just had, a client actually email me last week. And they're in my Hit the Inbox monitoring program. And so I provide them a monthly report. Here's your email health score. Here are things that you need to be doing so that you can get more of your emails delivered. And for the past 8 months, actually longer, but past 8 months at least, because I went back and looked, and I have harped like you need to be doing these things. If you don't, you're going to get in trouble. And they sent me an email last week, and at the last line of the email was, "We've got to fix this, or I don't know what good your service is doing our organization." And I just simply responded, just boldly. I said, "Look, I've been telling you for at least 8 months the specific things that you and your team need to do because I can't do them for you. They're things you need to do so that you can avoid these problems. By the way, I sent you 2 videos last week telling you about these specific issues and what you can be doing, and they hadn't even watched them. And so it was that lack of accountability. It's like, oh, it's not my fault, it's your fault.
Of course,
And we see that showing up so much
everywhere.
everywhere,
I'm
right?
sorry to hear it happen to you, but it is anecdotal to what we're talking about, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pervasive, right, Scott? Because crap flows downstream,
Yep.
right? And nobody wants to be. So all of a sudden, you see demise, and of course, they'll hire somebody else and they'll do the same thing,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because you're giving them heartfelt and expert advice. But I told one of my teams one year, I said, guys, your mother is sitting over there watching you play. She's clapping for you, probably brings you toast and tea when you're sick, but she can't get you a rebound. That you have
Yeah.
to do yourself, right? So
Yep.
same thing, right?
Yeah. Well,
Same,
and I was on a mastermind call today, the day that we're actually recording this. And it was just kind of like an open type of forum. And one of the guys stepped up and was like, "Hey, I'm just not getting clients." And so the mastermind facilitator, he was like, "Tell me what you've been doing.
right?
What specific actions have you been taking to go out and try to get clients? Let people know, here's what I do. Here's how I can help you. Here's how I can serve you." And the guy has less than 300 friends on Facebook. He doesn't post on Facebook. He doesn't send out any emails because he doesn't have an email list. He's just kind of like hoping and praying that people will find him. And it was the basic, stuff. And the mastermind facilitator was like, you've got to be doing something. You can't just expect the universe just to throw something in your lap and you're going to get, all these clients. You actually have to put in the effort. And it comes down to that accountability. Are you going to do something after we get off of this call so that by next week that you actually have potential for getting clients?
It's everywhere. And again, I try to position it in the book kind of whimsically, playground principles. I
Mm-hmm.
actually like the title, I have to be honest, because I did, the great John Wooden said, you haven't taught it until they've learned. So
Mm-hmm.
you're trying to teach your clients the same sort of thing. The vertical that I'm talking about is it's accountability, a different forum for it, but still
Mm-hmm.
accountability. I try to help a group of what's it called on LinkedIn. I make no money out of it or anything, but I was asked to help it. It's called Open to Work and Looking.
Okay.
It's a big LinkedIn group. We're nobody, and we have several thousand members. There's
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people looking for work.
Sure.
So I try to post in there almost what you just said, except as it relates to the job search.
Mm-hmm.
I said, what are you doing to help yourself? Don't just write a resume and think you're looking for a job,
Mm-hmm.
right? Are you posting once a week, once a day, even on the area of expertise that you have? I don't care if you're an accounts payable clerk or a rocket scientist. Are you opining anywhere on the state of rocket science or accounts payable, or what's the latest great system, or what broke, and expose yourself in another way or two or four to the world, where finally, when somebody types Scott Hartley or Barry Kleiman or your client into LinkedIn, which they do, I've taught classes on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is the world's greatest voyeur site. As soon as they might look at you, they're going to look at your profile. So, oh God, he's posted 27 articles in the last 40 days on this. So now I get to read Scott's point of view, even if they hate it.
Mm-hmm.
You're showing them a perspective and a point of view to what your this person in the mastermind was being told this morning.
Yeah.
Right? They're not being accountable. They're not putting in the work. They're not doing the reps, as we call it in basketball coaching. But it's all the same thing.
Yeah.
Same in the mastermind, right? And so, but it is interesting. But you know, look, it's the state of the world, and to your point, I mean, social media is interesting, and it's also could be our detriment. AI could be our detriment more. We could use it, but there's still a basic look. You and I have never physically met, right?
Right.
I think we've now been on, maybe this is the third time we've been engaged, maybe once in email, maybe once on a call, and yet we figured something out to build some level of mutual trust, where
Mm-hmm.
you trusted me to come on your show, I trusted that your show would help, and here we are. And it's just we figured out how to connect,
Yeah.
and it's so scalable, right? And so, anyway, I mean, I could go on and on and on, but it applies to your point everywhere. And yet, I don't know how it's going to change, Scott, but I can tell anybody who wants to use connection, real connection, not bullshit, pardon me, as a strategic advantage, it is.
Yeah.
And it is, And so, anyway.
Now, in your book, you talk about, I don't want to give everything away, but in
Oh,
your
it's
book,
okay.
you talk about, you've got this framework of the four questions.
Oh, sure.
Can you kind of like tell us a little bit about
Yeah,
what those four questions are that actually helps us get results and turn these playground principles into real life results for us?
Absolutely. And it's a great way for, because I know we're on some sort of a time leash, but so accountability A is one playground principle, without a doubt.
Mm-hmm.
You walk into the playground without being accountable, it, don't come back. Like I said, that should be your filter. The other one starts with A too, which is attribution. If I'm in the playground and I'm open and you throw me a good pass and I make a basket, I better give you a fist bump. I better say good pass, Scott.
Mm-hmm.
If I don't acknowledge you, if I don't attribute you, you ain't gonna ever throw me the ball again. And I wouldn't blame you.
Mm.
You know, I wouldn't blame you.
Hmm.
Because at some point we're all here trying to win the game together. You know, total way greater than sum of the parts, right? I bring it up only because I have, again, I've been in the consulting world for decades, right? And I would always have a question that I would ask clients, which was, and this is my stop to the point where I know what do I want to happen. So my always walking around question was, what do you want to happen?
Hmm.
Because someone could complain and complain. Your client that you just talked about the okay, well, what do you want to happen? And well, I want more engagement. I want more whatever they told you.
Hmm.
Okay. So that was always my question. I met a woman. I was speaking, and teaching um, at a conference, a women's conference down in Jacksonville Beach, Florida, several years ago. And I met a woman whose name is Dr. Edith Eger, Holocaust survivor, wrote 2 books, without a doubt. And I do talk about her in my book, consistently to attribution.
Hmm.
She wrote this book called The Choice. She is by without a doubt the coolest person I've ever met. She was left in a pile of bones in Auschwitz when she was 16, and she turned 97 the other day.
Mm.
Uh, Amazing human. But I saw her once write something. She's Jewish, and on Passover she wrote. So ask yourself these 4 questions. Passover, the Jewish holiday Passover, has 4 questions at their root. I read it. I said, "Oh my God!" The first one is, "What do you want to happen?" So I wrote the other 3 down, and I realized this is my framework, but extrapolated out in another level of genius than I gave to it. But I began using it ever since. And in the book, I talk about, thanks Dr. Egger for helping me build out these 4 questions, because now the 4 questions consist my entire consulting model. I do not ever mean giving it away, because I think if everybody used 4 questions in their dialogue with people, we'd all be better off.
Hmm.
Gabe talked about it when I interviewed him. So the 4 questions are basically so I would let's use it anecdotal to the situation that you just talked about with your client that was giving you a bad time.
Hmm.
Okay, Sally, what do you want to happen? Well, I want more X.
Hmm.
Okay, good. Next question is why? Okay. Well, because I need, okay, well, let's really talk about why and drill down on why. Why do you want that? Because of this, why do you want, and really make them understand. Because
Hmm.
telling anybody anything is a fool's game. The Khalil Gibran once said, the teacher, if indeed wise, will lead the student to the doorsteps of their own mind,
Mm.
something like that. So you make Sally get to the doorstep of her own mind, and you keep, why do you want what? Okay, got it. So now, what do you think the next best step you could take is to make that happen? Third question. What's the next best step? I call it, because I'm a basketball geek, the NBA. Next best action.
Hmm.
One action.
Yep.
One. Not 50. One. What do you think the next best step you could take? And what do you think she would say, your client, had you asked her this? What do you think she might have said? Because it's your job now to make her drill down to one.
Yeah.
Is the next best step you yelling at me? Sort of a thing, right?
Right.
Because, for me, I would say, well, what I want to happen is for you to watch the 6 videos I sent you,
Yeah. That's
kind
the
of,
next best step to get you the results that you said that you wanted.
right? And then the fourth question is, when will you take the step?
Mm.
And that's the whole model. So I apply it in every chapter I wrote, and I think the book has 7 or 8 chapters. At the end of each chapter, when I talk about the point that I was trying to make, and I won't read everybody the book, but you buy it, whatever. Um, at the end of each chapter, I build the 4 questions in. So now that you've read this,
Hmm.
what do you want to happen from it? Why do you want it to happen? What's the next step you're going to take to make it happen? And when will you take the step? So at the end of the day, the book is about what we first talked about, which is accountability.
Yeah.
I can't come with a hose and beat you to, pound on you to it's on you. I can help you, right? The great Peter Drucker said, as a consultant, I just acted stupid and asked a lot of questions. That's what I've learned. So the four questions is a framework, Scott, for making somebody think about what they want to happen, why, what's the next step they're going to take to make it happen, and when will they take the step? Because without them engaging in that, you may as well just hit your head against the wall, Scott, because
Yeah,
there's
because
nothing that
it's
you
really
can.
that concept of you have to get they have to be intrinsically motivated,
They
right?
have to be
It's
connected to
like
themselves.
yeah, because you can try all the external motivation that you want. And I'm sure you experienced this on the basketball court. You've got, people who wanted to be on the basketball team, but because they wanted the notoriety, they wanted to, be part of the popular crowd or whatever that it was, but they
Correct.
didn't want to put in the work that was required to truly excel on the court. And you can do all kinds of external motivation and everything, but it usually doesn't work. But if you can tap into that most important question, I feel out of your four is the why.
Why
And
is
it's not the
important.
surface level because, as you've already alluded to, it's why do you want that? We'll go a layer deeper. Why do you want that? Why is that important? Well, let's go even deeper. Why is that important? And when you tap into that, and then I love the fact that you mentioned like what is the next best action? Not
It's
and
very
it's action, it's
systematic.
singular, right? It's not like the
One.
five, it's the one thing because that way it eliminates that overwhelm,
Correct. It is,
right?
and it is systematic. And why I continue to praise Dr. Egger for this beautifully systematic kind of, machine,
Mm-hmm.
right? One step. Like I tell people, what do you want to have? I want a Tesla. Your answer cannot be because your neighbor has one. I mean,
Right?
it can be, but it's kind of hollow, right? And you have to hear yourself say that.
Yeah.
So it becomes quite powerful, and it is the root, um, the ultimate essence of the book. So the other quotes in the book are connection with self as oxygen. Because if you can really drive yourself to answer those four questions, it's liberating.
Mm-hmm.
You might hate the answer, but at least you have a pathway.
Yeah.
You want to get bigger muscles, go to the gym, right? Whatever it is. And so you'll decide how badly you want them. So that's connection with self oxygen. The other quote I have in there is connection is currency. In some way, shape, or form, when Dr. Covey's son, Business at the Speed of Trust. Connection is currency. When you get with people who you trust and trust you, you will get things done. You will do business. You will. I built a basketball community in a place where nothing ever existed before. It's not like I was a genius, but I told people about my mission and I told them why. And anyway, so it is currency, but it does start with you.
Mm.
You can't expect to start it externally, and the book, Dr. Covey says, private victories precede public victories.
Mm-hmm.
So, but what does that come back to, Scott? Accountability.
Yeah.
So it all comes back to that, and yeah, I mean, I will say this: I have no idea what's going to be the end game from my book, but I will say this: I'm very glad I wrote it because it liberated me to get my thoughts out. I've gotten some very interesting reviews on it. Good. Some of them will, I think we've lost our chance of connection, but I'm glad you're writing about whatever. To bring it to the forefront of people's minds. As Brunson said, what do you want? What do you want to? I'm not a guru, right? I'm a reporter, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
reporting on our lack of connection, and I will continue to proselytize about it because I want my grandkids to know it,
Yeah.
right? I want my kid, anyway. So that's it, and I know we have a timeline here, but I really thank you. I hope with stuff like this and the book, and I did not preach to anybody in the book. I try to use stories to show my points of views. It's not just Barry Kleiman saying you have to do this because that never works.
Right.
Uh, and it didn't even work as a coach, frankly. But I hope it gets across and just, once again, I mean, your business is marketing. Hit
Yep.
the inbox and you do a great job. I will tell you that it applies absolutely in business and absolutely in marketing and absolutely, I mean, what is marketing after all? Is connecting with somebody on the other side of the fence.
Yep.
Right? What is it after all? It's people connecting with people, right? And that's what it is at the end of the day, right?
Yeah.
That's what it is. And so the other thing is important, in the playground, every day was a tryout. Like you might have been really great yesterday, and if you can rest on your laurels for one day or 2 days, but by third, fourth day, if you're not producing out there, then you're not getting picked.
Hmm.
And so it is in our work. So this is not a one-shot deal. Connection is connection. Connection,
Yeah.
not well, like, alike. So anyway, it applies to business too. And if people are willing to see it like that and they don't get dragged to the AI rabbit hole, or even social media rabbit hole of likes and all that kind of junk, or how many followers do you have, or whatever. So anyway, that's it. I can't thank you enough for doing this. And again, it's your show. I'll stay on as long as you like, but I am empathetic to your time and so forth. But I'm quite appreciative.
Sure, absolutely. Well, Barry, this has been great today. I have not had a chance to read your book just yet, but it's a short book.
It
It's
is
literally
100
only like
pages.
96 pages. So, I mean, you can read this in an afternoon. And so I will probably be carving out some time this weekend to dial this in because, again, just kind of what we talked about here. It's so much needed in our society today is going back to the things that worked before we had all of this digital stuff. And, the is, like you mentioned Dan Kennedy earlier, the things that we have available to us now can put all of those quote unquote old school methods on steroids. It gives us extra opportunities of ways to apply it and really get exponential results a lot easier than what it was, back when everything was all analog. And so I'm looking forward to diving into this, but I love the four questions that you went through there.
Thank Dr. Egger.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, so I think all of this is really, really good. So, I encourage everybody pick up a copy of the book. We'll make sure that we have a link to it in the show notes, but you can pick it up on Amazon. It's called The Playground Principles by Barry Kleiman. And Barry, I know that you mentioned that you've got a special bonus for our podcast listeners if they go purchase a copy of the book and they do a review of the book for you on Amazon. You mentioned that you would do something special for him. You want to tell about that real quick?
Yeah, I mean, just have them call me and I'll take them through any circumstance in their life. Because again, in the career consulting business, I never hung a shingle, Scott, as a life coach. I actually hate the term.
Uh-huh.
But ultimately, that is, I mean, I've been in living rooms, right? Just because I connected with people, that's who I am or was or whatever. So I'm happy to take anybody through a 4 questions download.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care if it's about their business or your home life or with a kid. Again, I mean, I've coached 25 years, kids from 9 to 30, on the basketball court. I just got done a couple days ago with another. So I'm happy to spend, 45 minutes with anybody, just going through a 4 question segment and show them how they're not rocket science, but they do need to be kind of laid out and really kind of laid down. And then once you understand the 4 questions, anybody, then you have them. You have them. I mean, one of our colleagues, Gabe Arnold, as soon as we got done, he went home and used them on his daughter, and he wrote about it and thanked me because that is how um, universal they can be. So I'd be happy to do that with anybody, and so forth. I actually have to say one more thing before I forget it. So anyway, that's my offer, and
Okay.
I'm 100% part of this podcast. Just tell them they came from Scott, and I'm more than happy to do it. Um, the book. This was a draft copy, but on the cover of the book is a painting, and this is very important for me to say this. It's a painting of sneakers hanging over a telephone wire. And it's a pretty cool image. And the image actually sits. I was sitting in my living room one night, um, figuring out what the cover of the book was going to be. And that image is very urban for anybody who's ever seen it before, and there's all kind of urban legend about where it comes from. And I read a great story. Ironically, the story I read says it's actually from Philly, which whether or not that's true doesn't matter. But I have a gentleman who's a mentor and turned out to be a friend and a colleague. And he was also CEO of Sony Entertainment and vice chairman of Deloitte and a great artist. And he painted this thing called Chuck's.
Hmm.
And during COVID, he painted it. So anyway, his name's Jay Samet. You can look up Jay's books. He's Disrupt You and Future Proofing You. But he was nice enough to be a mentor to me. And I called him and I said, "Can I use your painting on the cover?" By all means, without Jay, I wouldn't have had what I now think is an iconic image. So once again, fist bump for Jay. Attribution. Don't be afraid to say thank you to people.
Yeah,
Don't be afraid to fist bump people. It's just easier that way. And so I would be remiss to not do that. So thank you,
absolutely.
Scott. And again, I'll make good on my offer. If it doesn't sound like a good offer to anybody, I would admonish you to think about it again, because asking them the four questions is a tool. Once you get them, you'll use them. You'll use them. You use them to how to figure out what's for dinner tonight.
Yeah.
I'm
Awesome.
just telling you, it's that powerful. So thank you, Scott. I'm very appreciative.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for sharing your wisdom and your insights with us here today. But like I said, make sure that you go out to Amazon. We'll put a link into the show notes to where you can grab a copy of Barry's book. And then, once you've read it and you've posted a review on there, we'll also have Barry's contact information so that you can reach out to him and schedule that call and dive in deeper. So, that's all for today's episode of From the Trenches. And if you're looking to supercharge your email marketing, you can check out my book, Hit the Inbox, available
Yep.
at hittheinboxbook.com. It's packed with 76 pages of strategies to get your emails landing in inboxes and driving sales. Thanks for tuning in today. If you found value in this episode, please subscribe, rate, and review the podcast on your favorite platform. It helps us reach more entrepreneurs like you. And until next time, keep crushing it in the trenches.